Good evening, everybody. My name is Derrick Pitts, Chief Astronomer at the Franklin Institute Science Museum, your cool astronomer, and I welcome you to the January 2021 edition of Night Skies at Home. This is our monthly astronomy program that we do to provide you all the information that you need to connect you to the night skies. Happy New Year to everybody, and we're glad you could be with us again for our program. We start out a whole new year now, and we can look forward to some of the things that are going to be happening this year that we want to keep track of as we're observing the night skies. And we also want to make sure we have all the information we need to know so that when we go outside on the evening sky, we'll be prepared to take a look around and understand what's there. So we'll cover lots of things in our program this evening. This program, of course, is for anybody who's interested in observing the night sky. You're not required to be an expert. You're not required to know anything about the night sky. It's not a situation where you need a telescope or binoculars or anything like that. This program will provide you information that you can use right away to understand what you're seeing in the sky. We'll also provide information about sunrise and sunset times, just so we can see how things are changing during the course of the year. We'll talk a little bit about the moon and what phase it's in right now. We'll talk about the planets that are visible. We'll also talk about constellations that are available for you to see at this time of this year, and we'll provide information about other important astronomical events and space exploration events that are coming up that should be on your calendar for right now. So again, I'm Derrick Pitts, Chief Astronomer at the Franklin Institute Science Museum. My Twitter handle is @CoolAstronomer. Please feel free to reach out to me with your questions, but tonight, I'll ask you to post your questions in the comments section here on our Facebook Live program. So whatever questions you have related to astronomy, we want to hear your questions. So please feel free to send those in. Those will come into our production team's website where they'll take a look at them, send them on to my studio production team here. The marvelous Linda's sitting right over here. Say hi, Linda.
Hi, everybody.
Linda's here with us tonight, and we'll get your questions right up here, and we'll see what we can answer of your questions. Now, if it turns out that we don't get to your question tonight, don't worry. What I'll do is I'll come back tomorrow, I'll dig through the questions, find your question, and respond to you. So please give us your questions. We really want to hear what you want to hear about, so we're looking to hear from you. Okay, great. So again, this program does not require you to have any skill or knowledge about astronomy at all. This is the kind of information that you can use to become a regular sky watcher. You know, it doesn't take very much time to familiarize yourself with the night sky. Many people think that if you're going to do something like learn about the night skies, you have to get a big book. You have to sit down, read the whole book, figure out how the sky maps are laid out and all that other sort of stuff before you can actually begin observing. And I'm here to encourage you to go about it another way. I'm really here to encourage you to take it off little bits at a time, little bites at a time, day by day. And you know, if you start with just one constellation on one night, by the time 2 weeks are done, you'll have almost all of the sky that's available for you to see at any one time, no matter where you are. That's the other thing. Often people assume that if you're going to do sky watching, you're going to have to do it someplace where the sky is clear and dark, far away from city lights, out in some rural location that might be difficult to get to. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you live in a place like that, gee, that's great. And if you have easy access to a location like that, that's great too. But you know what? If you live right smack dab in the middle of a city, there's still plenty for you to see without binoculars, without a telescope, that you can easily identify. And you can build even on what you find under city lights to help sort of fill out your view of the sky, depending on when you look and where you look. So it doesn't matter where you are. You know what? For our friends that are in the New York metropolitan area, you know, right around the city, if you're in northern New Jersey, if you're in Connecticut, if you're on Long Island, if you're in southern New York, just a little bit up in some of the counties just outside of the city, guess what? All of this information is for you too. And I know how challenging it can be to see the sky around New York City. I've done a little bit of astronomy work there, but guess what? Your skies aren't really that much worse than mine are. And I can see all the constellations of the winter sky, the main constellations, that is, of the winter sky. And so if I can see them here, you can see them there, okay? So we're going to give you all that information to help you get on board for learning how to find your way around the evening sky. Again, no needed. Okay, so most important message, please folks, don't forget to wear a mask. Whenever you're outside, whenever you're around people, we still need to mask up for it. Still a while longer, so don't forget to do that. That's really important. The other thing I want to mention is, hey, did you get a holiday gift that's an astronomy gift, like a telescope maybe? If you need some help understanding how that telescope works, you know what we're going to do here? Each month, we're going to take a section of a telescope and we're going to tell you what it does, we're going to tell you how it works, and we're going to tell you what to do with it so you know how to use your telescope by the time the weather warms up enough for you to be outside observing for long periods of time. Okay, so that's a plan going forward you can buy into. Tonight, we're going to talk about the reasons for seasons and how it has to do with the Earth's motion around the sun, and in particular, one special day that always comes early in the year called Perihelion. Perihelion. Some of you might know what that means already. You might be able to decipher the Greek roots of that word, peri and helion, to understand what it means, but we're going to talk about that. And guess what else? You know, SpaceX was really, really busy last year launching rockets. Well, guess what? They have not slowed up at all. In fact, they have another launch that's due to take place tomorrow, Saturday, or Sunday. And so we want to give you the information you'll need about that so you can be caught up with that. Again, don't forget, we have the questions. We're looking for your questions to ask us this evening. So please be sure to send your questions in to us. Okay, great. So let's do this first. Let's do a little bit of sky phenomenon stuff just to get us started here. So you'll know what's happening basically in the sky right now. And then we'll go back and we'll do some details. But after this section, we'll start to take a few questions. So let's get through this first, and then we'll take some questions, and then we'll go on to the rest of the stuff for the evening. Okay, so I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but sunsets are starting to come later already. Sunset is now at 4:53 p.m. That's going to be tomorrow night. The sun will set at 4:53 p.m. You know, that's for Philadelphia latitude. If we adjust that a little bit, if we go further north, what's going to happen is sun's going to set a little bit earlier. If we go further south, the sun's going to set a little bit later. But in any case, right around that time, about 10 minutes of 5. That's going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to add minutes on to the end of the day. And that's where you'll first notice that the days are getting longer. But given another couple of days, we're going to start to back up sunrise times, meaning that sunrises will begin to come earlier. And in this way, we'll be adding minutes much more quickly to the day. And in that way, you'll see that the days are getting, as we say, longer, and we're making our march towards spring. Okay, so watch out for that. Sunrise is at 7:22 right now. That'll be changing in another few days. It'll next be 7:21 and then 7:20, and we'll keep backing out earlier and earlier. Sunsets at 4:53 p.m. The moon today is 23 days old. That means it's almost done with its cycle for right now. Today is the last quarter phase, and that means that the moon rises at 1:08 a.m. 1:08 in the morning today. That's when the moon rose, and it's set today at 12:32 p.m. It's set at 12:32 p.m. So right now, as I said, it's the last quarter phase. The cool thing for you to do is to catch a sight of the moon in the morning sky over in the west, right around 10 o'clock in the morning. If you haven't seen the moon in the sky during the day, I mean in the morning, it's a really cool sight to see. And you know, we have a string of really nice days coming up right now, right through the weekend up until next Monday. We're going to have sunny skies, at least here in the Philadelphia area. Check the weather where you are, because this applies to you too. And you know what you'll be able to do? You'll be able to watch the final phases of the moon as it approaches new moon phase in the morning. And so here's what you do. You go outside, 10 o'clock in the morning, you look over toward the western side of the sky. You should be able to see the moon high in the western sky. Well, as the days progress, the moon's position at 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:30, is going to bring the moon closer to the sun step by step. Now, this is the moon moving in its orbit around the Earth. And so when we get to new moon, that's the phase where the moon is in the sky near the sun during the day. It's either above the sun or below the sun. But of course, the sky is so bright, contrast is so low, you can't see the moon. And of course, the light is actually shining on the other side of the moon, not on this side of the moon, okay? So we can't really see it that easily. So here's one thing that you can look for day by day during the day. So you can do astronomy during the day as well. No binoculars, no telescope needed. It's a cool sight. Check it out. Okay, so we do have bright planets that we can see in the sky. You know, last month it was all about Jupiter and Saturn with the great conjunction of the year 2020. Well, that's gone. Jupiter is still just barely visible above the southwestern horizon just after sunset. So it'd be like 5 o'clock until maybe about 5:30, 5:45. And then it's too low on the southwestern horizon for you to see it. Saturn's pretty much gone, so you won't catch that. But Jupiter, if you're lucky, clear view of the southwestern horizon, you'll still be able to see it. Okay, what else do we have? Brilliant Mars. It is gorgeous, hanging high in the south at 9:30 in the evening. That lovely rosy color, you can't miss it. That's a cool target for binoculars. So if you picked up binoculars over the Christmas holiday, try your binoculars on Mars. You'll see the color enhance really, really nicely. That's a good one. Okay, so Venus is rising about an hour before sunrise over on the eastern side of the sky, but it's very low in the east, so it's fading quickly in the morning twilight. So we're going to be out of luck for a little while with planets, but we'll still have Mars to take a look at. Some of the more distant planets of the solar system, Uranus and Neptune, are in favorable positions, but folks, I got to tell you, even using a really, really fine and big telescope like we have down at the Franklin Institute, I mean, it's great to acquire the target, Uranus or Neptune, but does it look like a whole lot? Between you and me, not really. Excuse me, why not focus instead on Mars? Looks really cool, okay? And you can see it in binoculars, that sort of stuff. All right, good. So now we also have other constellations that we can look for, and we'll get into that in just a second. But I understand we have questions. We have lots of questions. So let's see if we can answer some questions at this point, and then we'll go take a look at what constellations are available for us to see. And I'll help you understand how you can identify those constellations easily so you can find your way around the sky. So Linda, what do we have?
Eliza Griswold says she has a lot of little people excited to see something in the sky by their 8:15 bedtime. What can you recommend?
Eliza, you have lots of little people who are anxious to see something in the sky. Well, guess what? Mars is a really great target because Mars becomes available right after sunset, as soon as the sky gets dark. So you don't have to wait late for this. And the cool thing is that Mars stands out because it has color. That nice sort of rosy color makes it stand out from anything else around it. And here's a really good lesson that you can do with them, Eliza. It's this. The way to tell the difference between stars and planets in the sky is that stars twinkle, but planets don't. That is, unless they're close to the horizon. In this case, Mars is not close to the horizon. In the south, about halfway up the sky, Eliza, nice and bright, you can't miss it, has that rosy color. So you can show them how to tell the difference between stars and planets. Mars will not twinkle, adjacent stars will twinkle. Here's the other thing, Eliza. Mars has a distinctive color and a distinctive appearance. If you get them to look at it on a regular basis, night after night after night, for about 2 weeks, every clear night, this will be a memory that'll be burned into their brain. And that way, they'll be able to identify Mars anywhere they see it, anytime from now on. So give them that really cool experience of being able to identify a planet like Mars. Later on, during the course of the year, I'll show you how to do this with Jupiter and Saturn and Venus. And then that way, they will have all of the visible planets available to them with an understanding of how to see it. And then, of course, the thing to do is to get them to share it with others. All right. So that's a cool thing to do. Okay, Eliza, what's next?
You have a shout out from the Rittenhouse Astronomical Society. They say they miss working alongside you.
Hey, my friends at the Rittenhouse Astronomical Society. Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining me tonight. Folks, if you're listening in, you're hearing me give a shout out to the Rittenhouse Astronomical Society, one of the oldest astronomical societies in the country, one of the most prestigious in the country. They've been based at the Franklin Institute for eons, and we have done such great projects together, such great outreach projects with the Rittenhouse. And I want to say thank you very much, you guys, for being willing to jump in with me on some harebrained schemes and ideas of how to do outreach in astronomy. We've had a great time doing it, and I look forward to doing more with you guys in the coming years. So thanks a lot. Hi, guys. Say hi to everybody for me. Okay, what's up next?
What Carly would like to know what telescope can see the farthest into space.
Carly wants to know what telescope can see the farthest out into space. Well, gosh, Carly, you know what? Right now, if we're talking about like any kind of professional telescope, I think what I would say for the telescope that can see the farthest out into space, I'm going to do two for this. One I'm going to do is Hubble Space Telescope. And I can talk about Hubble because it's actually positioned up in orbit around the Earth, about 425 miles up. So it's above the Earth's atmosphere, and it has a great clear view of the universe. That's really nice. It's a decent sized telescope, but not the biggest telescope. For that, I would go to something here on Earth, the twin 10-meter Keck telescopes. Those are really big telescopes, the biggest on the planet right now. And, they can see pretty far out into space. Now, if you're talking about how far out into space they can see, well, they can see millions and millions and millions of light years out, hundreds of millions of light years out. So they can see essentially out to the edge of the observable universe. Now, is it a great view? What are you going to see? Well, let's just say at least we can get some information from there. And it is sort of spectacular that we can create instruments that do this, but there are other instruments coming online in the next couple of years, Carly, that really are going to be amazing telescopes because they have so much greater capability than even the 10-meter telescopes. So you can go to their websites, by the way. The 10-meter Keck telescopes at Mauna Kea Observatory in Hawaii is a cool one to go to. And you know what? Give yourself a real treat. Go to the Hubble Space Telescope website, and I think it actually is hubblesite.org, HUBBLESITE.org. Treat yourself to some of the gorgeous images that are there. And oh, by the way, since the telescope is paid for with taxpayer money, that's your telescope. Go enjoy the images. Thanks, Carly. What's next?
Margaret and Marita would like to know what portable and affordable telescopes do you recommend?
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was it again?
Margaret and Marita.
Margaret and Marita. What good telescopes are portable? Good, relatively inexpensive telescopes? You know what I would recommend? There are two telescopes that I would recommend for this. Sometimes people like to use the classic kind of telescope that's like a spy scope, that's sort of a long tube and you look through the back end. Well, those are really nice telescopes. And I would say that something in the measurement of maybe 3.5-inch diameter front lens is a good portable size, and it's also not that expensive. The one thing you have to watch out for, though, is you have to make sure you get a good tripod for a telescope like that, because if the tripod is unstable, then the view will be unstable, right? So you have to have a stable system altogether. So a good beefy tripod with a 3-inch to 4-inch refractor is what that telescope is called. Might be a good one, okay? That's a cool one. And then there are what are called tabletop telescopes. And the particular design I like is called Dobsonian. Dobsonian. So a tabletop Dobsonian telescope of about 4 inches in diameter will also be a really good telescope and very portable too. So a couple of places you can go check out for this. Let me see. The one place I like is Orion Telescope Center, and that's telescope.com. You can check there. And then the other place is there's a local spot in Pottstown, and the name of it always escapes me, but it'll come back to me in a second. So give me a second and I'll come back and I'll give you that name, okay? And that's just a local place. You can check them out. These are people that know their stuff really, really well and have been in the business for a while. But go to that website. You can go to either website, actually, and you can check out what they have available, and you'll find good information there. Okay, one more.
Well, two more. You have a shout out from Norway.
A shout out from Norway?
Yeah.
Wow, thank you for joining us all the way from Norway. We greatly appreciate having you here. And you know what? You're not far from our minds at all. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I have kind of a soft spot in my heart for Norway because I've been there and I was treated really, really well and had a wonderful time and look forward to coming back. But here's the other reason why Norway is close. And that is because I really want to come to Norway to see the Northern Lights. And I understand Norway is a really great place for that. So thank you very much for the shout out. We greatly appreciate it. And who knows, maybe we'll get to see you when we come to Norway to check out the Northern Lights. Thanks a lot. Glad to have you aboard.
Tim Pagel would like to know with stars constantly moving at warp speeds, Why do constellations appear to remain stationary for decades at a time?
And tell me the name again.
Tim Pageau.
Oh, Tim Pageau. Hi, Tim. Thanks for joining us. Your question is, if stars are moving at such rapid speeds, why is it that they seem to hang together in constellations for such a long time? Yeah, there's a really good reason for that, Tim. Yeah, stars do move at a relatively high speed, but the fact of the matter is that the distances are so great that as we see it from Earth, it doesn't seem as if they're moving all that quickly. Now, that's not to say that the constellation shapes are not changing. Indeed, they are. They are changing. In fact, constellations that we see in the sky tonight, as we see them, things like the Big Dipper or say Orion the Hunter in the particular shape that they're in, no, they weren't in that shape 8,000 years ago, and they won't be in that shape 8,000 years from now. So because of the individual motions of stars, and that's something I need to bring out, Tim, for everybody else, is that all of the stars that we see in the sky have their own motion, their own direction, their own speed, okay? As we see them today, we see a snapshot of where they're placed right now. If we could be here for 12,000 years, we would see how those patterns change because of those individual motions that the stars have. So for us right now, Tim, we as individuals are here for such a short period of time, we catch the snapshot. But if we're here for longer, we'd get to see how all this stuff changes. So, that's one of the coolest things is the 12,000 year thing. If we could hang around and see how the Earth's rotational axis does this thing called precession, where the rotational axis wobbles around as the Earth rotates, we'd see how the North Star has changed over thousands of years from one star to another to another to another. That's a great question, Tim. Thanks a lot for joining us, and thanks for bringing us that question. That's a really cool one. Thanks a lot. Okay, great. So now here's what we need to do, folks. We need to jump out and go over to taking a look at a star map so we can see what constellations are available for us to see right now. So here's what I'm going to do, folks. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go over there. Let me first go over and get this set up. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to share my screen so that we can go out and take a look at what constellations are available for us to see right now. So here we go. Bear with me as we get the sharing done. I know sometimes it can take a minute for it to catch up. So there we go. And I'm just going to clean up my screen. There we go. And we can see everything just fine here. All right, I think we're in good shape. Okay, good. So folks, I'm using a program that I really like called Stellarium Web Online. Stellarium is a home planetarium program that works on your home computer or your laptop. And Stellarium actually will work on your mobile device as well. There's a mobile version. And I'm using the online version. And you can find it at stellarium-web.org. Stellarium-web.org. So if you're with me now, you can see my cursor here working around the screen. Let me just adjust things a little bit more. There we go. So we can see everything there. Now we're in good shape. Okay, so right down at the bottom of the screen, you can see the control icons down here. And the control icons will allow us to put up constellation outlines, constellation names, all sorts of things like that. But basically what you can see right now is what the sky looks like over Philadelphia. And I have purposely oriented this so that we're looking toward the south. And I chose that direction of looking toward the south because as we stand outside looking at the sky, what we really want to see is how the sky appears to rise over in the east, that would be on our left, pass in front of us or overhead in the south, and then set over on our right, over in the west. And this is following the natural motion of the Earth as it rotates on its axis. Now here's a question for you. If the sky appears to move from left, overhead, over to the right, what direction must the Earth be rotating in order to make that happen? Think about that while we take a look at a couple of constellations that are visible for us this evening. Let's first start out with Mars. We can see Mars right in the middle of our screen here. The time we're looking right now is right now at 8:08 p.m. And we can see right down here, right down in the lower corner, what date and time we're working on. And if we click on this box, we can actually adjust the date and time, as you can see there, without too much difficulty at all. So we don't need that right now. That's where we are, a little bit after 8 p.m. on this evening, the 7th of January. And we can see Mars right here, high in the south, easy to see. So even if you start out at 6 o'clock in the evening, Mars will be there because the sky will already be dark. And because it's up so high, you can follow it for several hours before it sets over on the western side of the sky. But you can see that there are plenty of brilliant stars that are visible in the evening sky right now. And let's start out with just a couple that make up the main constellations of the winter sky. And it's a group that's centered right over here in this portion of the sky, right where I'm circling right around here. And they actually are all centered on this one constellation right in the middle, and this is Orion the Hunter. Now, if you take a look at Orion, and I'm going to blow it up for you so you can see a little bit better. There we go. I'm going to come in just like this. And I'm going to point out these main stars. There are 3 right here in a line, 1, 2, 3, Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka. These 3 stars are equal brightness and equally spaced. So they're very easy to identify. They're also nice and bright, so you can't miss them. And then above these, we find Betelgeuse. Don't say that 3 times, and you know why. But that's a red giant star. So if you like, you can compare the red of this star to the red of Mars, okay? And we also know that the red color is an indication of the star's temperature. We can go across from that over to Bellatrix right over here. This star right there you can see. So we have now 5 stars, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now let's go down below those 3 where we have Rigel. This is a hot blue-white star, easy to recognize its color also. And then we'll come across right over here to Saiph, right down here in the lower portion. Safe is a way to say that, sure. So we have Betelgeuse, Bellatrix, Rigel, and Saiph right down here. So think of this as being a person. Here's the belt marking the person's waist. Here's the upper right shoulder here, the upper left shoulder. Down here is the left knee, and over here is the left ankle, right down here. So with these stars set up like this, we have the whole body of Orion the Hunter, a great shape that we can use to help us find our way around the sky. And here's the reason why. I'm going to back us out a little bit now so we can see a little bit better. Now you can see where the belt stars are. If you stretch a line from the belt right up here to the upper right, you come to another red star called Aldebaran in the constellation Taurus the Bull. If you come down in the opposite direction, down to this large white star here, down to the lower left, Sirius. Sirius is the brightest star in the northern sky. So it's very easy to recognize, but it also happens to be part of the constellation Canis Major. So this marks the star that is the jewel in the collar of the mythological dog, Canis Major. Now, Canis Major is one of Orion's hunting dogs because, as you know, Orion is supposed to be a hunter in the sky. The way he stands is he's holding a lion's skin shield in one hand, and he has a club in his other hand high overhead here, and he's about to get into an argument or a fight with Taurus the Bull. This V-shaped grouping of stars marks the face of Taurus the Bull. Oh, let's not have that just yet. And the horn tips of the bull are one right here and one right here. There we go, right there, the horn tips of the bull. So here's the nose of the bull. This is the one eye of the bull, the other eye of the bull, the V-shaped face, the horn tips here. Here's Orion looking like he's heading in that direction with his hunting dogs, Canis Major down here at Sirius, and his other hunting dog, Canis Minor, right up here at the star Procyon. So now what we've done is we've set you up now with 1, 2, 3, 4 constellations already. Just 4 constellations already in just that one group of stars, easy to recognize. There are 2 other groups here that are not too difficult to catch as well. One is Gemini the twins right up here above Orion's head. And these 2 stars right here, Pollux and Castor, mark the heads of the 2 twins. These are the heads. Their arms and legs and bodies and feet come down here. And last but not least, the constellation Auriga the Charioteer is just up above Orion and Taurus, right over here. Auriga the Charioteer with the bright star Capella. Capella. Now, I encourage you to use this star chart to help figure out your way around, because here we can show you what the line outlines look like. So now you can really get an idea of what that shape looks like. And I've pointed out the main constellations for you: Canis Major, Canis Minor, Gemini, Auriga, Taurus, Orion right in the middle. But you can see that there are some other minor constellations around these as well. But if you start out with one constellation a night, figure out what the outline should be like. Go outside, find that one, come back in and reward yourself, whatever kind of reward you like. And then the next night, go out and find that one again, but now look for the next adjacent one to it, like Taurus, for example. If you keep building from night to clear night like that, you'll have most of the sky done in 2 weeks. So in just 2 weeks, you'll have learned these constellations. Now, how much time does it take you to do this outside? If you want to spend 20 minutes, gee, that's great. But don't overtax yourself. Take 10 minutes to do it. You have every night. All you need is 10 minutes outside after dinner, and you can nail some of these constellations really, really quickly, okay? And you can build up your chops, build up your knowledge about these constellations really easily, okay? So that's what's available, just like that. Now, I've backed the sky out a little bit. I'm going to get rid of the outline so we can see the sky again. And you know that these constellations also have stories that go with them. And I'm sure you've seen the artwork that goes with these constellations that helps to tell the story. And here you can see what that looks like. This is one rendering, one artist's view of what these look like. But each and every one of these mythological figures has a story that goes with it. And the stories are really fascinating. Sometimes they're very deep and very extended, and many of them are connected to each other. For example, I'm not going to tell you the story, but you should look up the story of Pegasus. Pegasus and, let's see, Andromeda. Yes, Pegasus, Andromeda, and the hero Perseus. That's a wild tale. Wait till you read that. You won't believe it could be so involved, but it really is. And now you can understand how it is that night sky viewers thousands of years ago could spend time looking at the night sky, because they could wrap these stories around the sky, and because they felt like the stars were eternal, they felt like these stories would last forever as well. Okay, so we've had a chance to take a look at these constellations here. We're going to take a break from this. I'm going to stop the screen sharing at this point and see if you have other questions.
Oh, we have lots.
Okay, let's take some other questions. Linda, what do you have?
Okay, what we have here is 7-year-old Nadia would like to know what's a good pair of binoculars that her mother can buy for her birthday.
Oh, Nadia. Hi, Nadia. Thanks for joining us tonight. You'd like to know what's a good pair of binoculars that your parents can buy or your mother can buy you for your birthday. Well, I'm going to recommend a pair of binoculars that has this designation, 7x50. 7x50. The 7x refers to the magnification of the binoculars, Nadia, and the 50 refers to the diameter of the front lens of the binoculars. Now, that measurement of 50 is in millimeters. There's 25.4 millimeters per inch, so 50 millimeters is about 2 inches. So if you think of it like that, you actually have two 2-inch telescopes right next to each other that you can look through, one for each eye. That's why it's called binocular, okay? Binocular. So you have the two together, right? But you have 7-power magnification. That's pretty good. The moon looks great in 7-power binoculars. The planets have an enhanced view in 7-power binoculars. Stars look better in 7-power binoculars, and you can even use 7-power to begin to split some closely spaced stars. That's a cool thing to do as well. But they won't be expensive, thank goodness. You can use them for lots of other things besides looking at the night sky. And so they'll be easy for you to use as well, Nadia. And you can share them with everybody in the family. So have your mom think about binoculars like that, 7x50 or cool ones. Don't go any higher than that for right now. They get too big and too heavy and sometimes can get expensive. Start with that. Figure out what you'd like to observe in the night sky on an ongoing basis, and then you can start to think about a telescope when you get a little older. Thanks a lot, Nadia. Great question.
Hattie wants to know, why is there a dark spot on Neptune?
Hattie wants to know, why is there a dark spot on Neptune? That's a great question, Hattie. Why would Neptune have a dark spot? Well, it's because of the dynamics of the atmosphere and the composition of the atmosphere. There's a lot of stuff going on out there that we are only just beginning to learn about. So as we look at the atmospheres of these planets, and good example of two planets to look at are Jupiter and Saturn, where they show us all kinds of interesting dynamics and colors and shapes and forms that tell us something about what's happening there. So there's a storm that's going on there, or there's a temperature change that's happening at that spot, some kind of dynamics about the atmosphere that makes these features come and go, grow and shrink over time. If we can continue to look at them with high-powered telescopes over time, we can see how the dynamics will change what those spots look like. That's a great question, Hattie. Thanks a lot. Keep looking at those. And while you're in there looking at pictures of Neptune, why don't you go take a look at some of the pictures that have come to us from the New Horizons spacecraft that flew past Pluto a couple of years ago. You want to see some spectacular images of a place we didn't expect would look like this? Pluto's the one. That one gets the prize. Thanks a lot.
Tim Edson, what's an easy way to keep your telescope aligned?
Oh, Tim Edson asks, what's a good way to keep your telescope aligned? Well, there's two things. If you're using a refractor telescope, you don't have much difficulty with alignment because the lenses are locked into the tube, so they stay aligned. So in a reflector telescope, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge to do that. But one of the things I highly recommend you do is every time you're thinking about using your telescope at night, and this is if you're using a Newtonian reflector or even the Dobsonian model, those two allow you to adjust the mirrors to make sure that things are in alignment. You should try to do this during the day. Don't try to do alignments at night. It is nearly impossible. So there's a simple way you can do this, actually. There's a little device that you can use, Tim, that goes over the, Tim?
Yeah, Edson.
Yes, thank you, Tim. That goes over the eyepiece that has a little pinhole in it, right in the center of that object that goes into that eyepiece hole, so that you can see where the center of the mirrors are, both your secondary mirror and your primary mirror. And then on the back end of the main mirror, folks, if you're not familiar with this kind of telescope, on the bottom end of the long tube that holds the big mirror, there are usually three knobs that are spring-loaded that allow you to sort of alter the position of the mirror so that you can line it up with the secondary mirror at the top of the telescope. I highly recommend that you do this every time you go out, but set your telescope up before it gets dark so you can do this most easily. And then the other thing that you can do with this is just be extraordinarily careful about how you transport and store your telescope so that this misalignment doesn't happen very often. Or if it does, you'll be pretty close. So that's a way you might be able to do that a little bit better there, Tim. Thanks a lot. Great question.
Kim Rogan, is there a regular pattern to be able to spot the space station?
Oh, hey, Kim, thanks a lot for this question. Is there a regular pattern that you can use to spot space station? I'm so glad you asked, because as it turns out, there's a sighting available of space station tomorrow morning for folks in the Philadelphia area. So here you go. It goes like this. Tomorrow morning, 5:20 in the morning. Yeah, I know, it's early, right? Oh, dark 30. But 5:20 in the morning, it begins over on the south, high in the southeastern sky. In this particular instance, space station is going to appear to pop out of a shadow into view at 5:20 in the morning. And then 2 minutes later, it's going to descend into the southeast at 5:22. Okay? So it starts at 5:20, high in the southeast, heads down toward the horizon, gone by 5:22. There aren't going to be any more good views around this area for the next 10 days. But your question was, is there a pattern you can recognize? And yeah, there is a pattern you can recognize, and it roughly goes like this. 2 weeks visible in the morning before sunrise, okay, in that morning twilight period. Then there's a week and a half or so where space station isn't visible at all, week to 10 days, not visible at all. Then about 2 weeks where it's visible in the evening sky, just after sunset in that twilight period, okay? So that's the rough pattern for how you might be able to recognize this. The better thing to do is go to a website where you can find this information, where you can begin to see the pattern yourself and get used to what part of the cycle you're in. Let's go do that right now. I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to come back out here to where we were at Stellarium, but we're going to ditch Stellarium right now. And let's see, what am I going to do here? Just a moment while I clear up my screen so I can see where I'm going. And I think I'm going to this tab right here. Yep, here we are. This tab is at heavensabove.com. Now, if you're seeing my screen, you can see what this looks like. It's heavens-above.com. And please believe me when I tell you that the most important part of this is the hyphen between the words heaven, heavens, and above, okay? Don't forget that. All right, now, here's a map for the flyover tomorrow morning over the Philadelphia area, right? I said it starts at 5:20 high in the southeast. You can see my cursor here. Space station appears to head toward the southeastern horizon, where it disappears 2 minutes later. Well, here's the timing on that, but I'm going to go back a page. And the reason why is because here's the listing of all of the views that are available from tonight through next Saturday. Problem is, most of these aren't very high. Under the highest point, this morning at 6:07, 72 degrees up. Tomorrow morning, 52 degrees up. That's good and high. The other ones, not so much. 20 degrees is okay, but you really want it to be 40 degrees or higher to get a really good view of it. But as you can see, this doesn't show very many passes, okay, that are visible passes anyway. So if I change the dates, I might get better than that. But you know what? I can actually use this program for any place in the world. All I have to do is go up here in the corner and change my location. And if I choose a location anywhere else on the planet, this will give me the information I need to know. NASA also has a website called Spot the Station. Spotthestation.gov will give you the information you need to know for space station flying over your region. And as you know, there's another program that I use called See a Satellite Tonight. And See a Satellite Tonight, no telescope required, is one that gives you a kind of a unique view of how you can see what satellites are visible around your area right in your neighborhood. And what it does is it identifies what satellites are available in the sky where you live. The second half of the screen here on the right-hand side actually uses a photograph taken by Google Earth that shows Google Street View. There we go. Google Street View that shows an image of your street and where the satellite appears in the sky over your street. So this is a very simple one, james.darpinian.com/satellites, and it'll allow you to see where to find these in your location. Okay, other questions?
Yes, indeed. We have other questions. 8-year-old Asha would like to know, why are planets in circles and not in other shapes like triangles?
Hello, Asha. Thanks for joining us tonight. Your question is, why do planets orbit in circles rather than orbiting in other shapes like triangles? Well, as it turns out, the reason why that doesn't happen, Asha, is because the gravitational pull on an object like a planet orbiting a larger body is much more equally distributed if that shape that it takes in the path going around is closer to a circle. Now, in fact, many of the planetary orbits are not circular at all. They're slightly squished into an oval shape, a very slight oval shape. And that's even true for the planet Earth, Asha. And that's going to give me a chance to talk about the next thing that's coming up. So hold on with me, Asha, while we talk about this next thing that helps to talk about why these circles are the way they are. Okay, so Asha's question, why is it that planets, when they orbit another body, always orbit in something that looks like a circle as opposed to something like a triangle? Again, the way in which the gravitational pull of a larger object is exerted on a smaller body is much more evenly distributed in a circular pattern. Nature likes to have things done evenly. So as it turns out, that's the way they are. But let's talk about this as a particular effect, though, for how it actually affects us. One of the topics I wanted to bring to you this evening was about this really cool effect called, or not effect, this really cool event called perihelion. Perihelion. This is a really great word that means close, sun, peri, meaning close, and helion from the Greek helios, meaning the sun. And perihelion is an event that occurs every year, right at the beginning of the year. This year it happened on January the 2nd, and this was the day when the Earth was at its closest position to the sun for the entire year. Yes, in January, right now, we're closer to the sun than we ever will be for the rest of the year. But how is it that that actually affects the temperature that we have here in the north in the winter? Well, wait, hold on. If we're closer to the sun, wouldn't it make sense that we'd be warmer now? Huh, that's kind of curious. As it turns out, one part of the Earth is warmer now. It's the southern hemisphere, not the northern hemisphere. I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to go, let's see how I can make this work the way I want it to. Give me a moment here while I just kind of surf around on my own pages. Here we are. Okay, let's go back to what Asha was asking, because Asha was asking about the orbits of planets around larger bodies. Here's an image of the Earth's orbit around the sun. This is an approximate shape for it. Of course, it's artwork, so it can't be exact. This oval shape that you see here is exaggerated so that we can see it easily in a graphic like this. And this points to this interesting aspect of this thing called perihelion. Perihelion for Earth happens in January, and that's the point where we are at our closest to the sun. The distance between the Earth and the sun at this time of the year is 91 million miles, just 91 million miles. The average distance between Earth and the sun is 93 million miles. So you can see we shaved a couple of million miles off. So wouldn't it make sense that if we are closer to the sun, we would be warmer? Well, we'll get to that in just a second, but I'll have you notice two things. First of all, if you look at the planet under the words January perihelion, you'll see there's like a pinkish line that runs up and down through the planet. That's the rotational axis of the Earth. That's what that's supposed to represent. Now, please note for me, if you will, you see the line that separates the illuminated portion of the Earth from the darker portion of the Earth? Well, that's the line of sunlight, I should say sunrise and sunset around the planet. Now take a look at the same graphic on the other side of the page where we see July aphelion. Aphelion means we're at our greatest distance away from the sun. And here you can see in July, we're 94.5 million miles away from the sun. That's quite a ways away, isn't it? Yeah, it sure is. Okay, but I have one other thing I'm going to share with you. Let me see if I can get that done, because next, here we come.
They can't see.
I understand.
What you're sharing, it froze up.
I see. The image froze and you can't see it. Oh, I'm terribly sorry about that.
But they can go to the site.
Okay, well, hopefully you can see this image. I'll hope that you can see this image. This is a really cool graphic that shows the sun in the center with a red line that indicates the Earth's orbit around the sun. I'm going to describe it to you because I understand you can't see it. And, hold on. Let me do this. I'm going to try to see if I can make this do what it's supposed to do, folks. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to stop my sharing here. Just a moment. I'm going to get rid of this image. We'll come back to here. Hopefully you can, see me here? Good. Okay, great. I'm going to try to share my screen once more. See if that works. Okay, how's that? Hopefully you can see this screen now. Images of the Earth at perihelion and aphelion, with the distances showing that in January, we're at 91 million miles.
Looks good.
And in July, we're at 94 million miles. Thanks a lot, folks, for letting me know that we were having a problem with that. We got it straightened out. So now you can see this? All right, good. Now, as I mentioned before, you see the oval here? That's exaggerated. It's nowhere near that big, but for the purposes of graphics, that's what we get. But you get the idea. Let's go on to the next graphic. Ah, here we are. Now, lovely image of the sun right in the center. You'll notice that the Earths are, set up to be almost as large as the sun, which is way inaccurate, but it does show you one very important thing. It shows you the rotational axis of the Earth. You can see it in purple as it goes through the planet. Here's what I'd like you to notice about this. In the Earth on the left, that's illuminated by the sun, notice that the sunshine line goes right up across the top of the planet. The top of the Earth is tilted toward the sun. Well, when the top of the Earth is tilted toward the sun, this is when our planet has the greatest heating. And that particular time of year happens to be our summertime, when the top of the Earth is tilted toward the sun. But it's also when the Earth is at its greatest distance away from the sun. So it's not about how close we are, it's about how intense the radiation is that falls down on the planet. On the opposite side of the graphic, we see that the top of the Earth is tilted away from the sun. And it's at this point when we are at our closest point to the sun. So again, it's not the proximity, it's the intensity of the light that's reaching the surface. At this time of year for us, light from the sun, radiation from the sun is spread over a broader region because we're tipped away from the sun. Now, some people might have the idea that the Earth's rotational axis tips back and forth like this during the course of the year. It doesn't. In the graphic, as you see, what happens is the tilt is set and the Earth goes around the sun tilted like this. And so that's how we get the top of the Earth tilted toward the sun and then the top of the Earth tilted away from the sun. Okay? You can go back and dig up more information about this on your own, but that's the general principle behind why we have seasons. And there we go. And that's the idea behind perihelion. We're at the closest point to the sun at this time of the year. Okay, thanks a lot for bearing with me through that little section right there. I greatly appreciate it. And that hopefully will help you understand a little bit more about seasons. And Nadia, I hope that helps to answer your question as well. Thanks for asking that. That's a really good one. Thank you. Okay, what do you have next, Linda?
Doug Linkhart, why do we have one moon but Jupiter has 44?
Doug Linkhart wants to know, why do we have just one moon and why does Jupiter have 44? Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you, Doug, it has a lot more than that. It has many more moons than 44. But the reason why, first of all, is because Jupiter is a much larger planet than Earth is. It has much greater gravitational pull because it's so much more massive. So it has had the time and the wherewithal to pull many, many other objects from the early solar system into orbits around Jupiter. Same is true for Saturn. So that also has lots more moons than the inner planets of our solar system do. And, the way in which the moon was formed with Earth is also part of the story of why we only have one moon. Now, to add to this, there have been all kinds, I should say it this way. In the early history of the solar system, the inner portion of the solar system was absolutely crazy with the dynamics of how the planets were shifting around and jockeying for position as the solar system formed. That also had quite a bit to do with why we only have one moon. But the primary reason why is because of the mass of Jupiter itself. Much more capability to pull objects into orbit rather than the Earth did. Thanks a lot for that question. That's a really good one too. Greatly appreciate it. What else do you have, Linda?
Ruth Turner, how did Saturn get its rings?
Ruth wants to know, how did Saturn get its rings? Well, it's part of this answer too, actually, that we just talked about, Ruth, in that, the gravitational pull of Saturn pulled lots of other objects into orbit around it. But there are also wicked, wicked tidal forces between the gravitational pull of the planet Saturn itself and lots of the other bodies in the solar system, like Jupiter and Uranus and Neptune, that actually were able to shred some of the larger objects that were orbiting around Saturn and thus create what we see as the ring system of Saturn. Now, if you look at the planets in the outer solar system, there's a really interesting thing to notice, and that is that Jupiter has a ring, Saturn has a ring, Uranus has rings, Neptune has rings. All part of the fact that they have these really, massive planets, much more massive than Earth at least, And the fight for tidal forces among those planets and their moons have created these really wonderful ring systems. Now, Jupiter's ring system is really, really subtle. We can't see it from Earth, but satellites out beyond Jupiter, looking back toward the sun, have been able to see the particles of ring material illuminated by the sun as these satellites look back toward the sun or toward the inner portion of the solar system. Yeah, very, very cool ring systems. Thanks a lot for that question, Ruth. What else, Linda?
Nick Nor, why doesn't daylight expand equally at sunrise and sunset? Since sunset is now getting later, but sunrise is not getting earlier.
Oh, yeah. I see. Nick is wondering why is it that the expansion of time on either side of on either end of the day, sunrise and sunset, aren't the same. Well, part of the reason is our orbital motion around the sun. The other part of the reason is where we are on the planet. If we were closer to the equator, we'd see that this would be more equal. If we were closer to the poles, it could be more divergent. The other reason has to do with where we are in terms of longitude on the planet, how these things change. So between all of these factors, that's the reason why the sunrises and sunsets seem to be out of kilter with each other. So if we were in a much more stable, I don't want to say stable, that's not quite the right word, but if we lived, if we were all at the equator, things would be much more even on both ends of the day for the expansion of sunrise and the coming of sunset. And depending where you are, longitude-wise on the planet also determines that. So when you put those things together, then you come up with why these things seem to be shifting out of time. Great question, though. Really good one. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
6-year-old Lucas Boner from Boyertown wants to know, where is Pluto in the sky?
6-year-old Lucas wants to know where Pluto is in the sky. Wow.
He's from Boyertown.
Oh, he's from Boyertown. Thank you very much. There's a different map that we have to use for that one, actually, because Pluto is so difficult to see. Let me just see if it's possible for me to pull that up for you and show you where you can find that one. That was a little bit of a challenge, but I'm going to give it a shot and see if I can make it work that I can show you where it actually is in the sky. Now, I might have a difficult time doing it on this planet because I don't have it preset. And so that's going to be a challenge for me to do. I wish I could show it to you so you could see it because Pluto is so small. But here's what I'll suggest that you do to find it. If you use the Stellarium home planetarium program, Lucas, don't use the Stellarium web one. Instead, use the one that you install on your computer. This is freeware, by the way. It's very stable. It works great. I use it all the time. And if you identify it as a planet that you want to see, you'll be able to find it without too much difficulty at all. I can't tell you off the top of my head where it is, but there's plenty of information out there that'll help you find it. If I can figure it out between now and then, we'll make sure you get that information. Or you've sent me a note, I'll dig it out for you and I'll get back to you after the program. Thanks a lot for that. Okay, so now, some of the other stuff that we said we were going to talk about this evening, let's make sure we get to that. One of those things is SpaceX. If you'll recall, I said earlier in the program that SpaceX was really, really active last year because they were testing a new spacecraft that they'd like to put into use that has great capability for carrying lots of equipment and carrying lots of people up into low Earth orbit. And the spacecraft that they are testing is called Starship. And you may have seen a little bit about Starship at the end of the year last year. They had a spectacular test flight. I think it was on December 23rd, I want to say. A spectacular test flight where this gorgeous, gigantic silver spacecraft took off from the launch site, flew up about 12,000 feet, hovered, then flipped over on its side, and gently came back down to Earth, where it then tipped vertically again, tried to land vertically, but crash landed and exploded. Oh, it was really spectacular. Well, the explosion wasn't a bad thing. It was a test flight. That could have happened, but everything else about the test worked exactly as they wanted it to. So there's another one of these coming up. Let's show you what that looks like. Just a moment. I will share my screen again and show you what this looks like. Bear with me for just a second. Let me make sure I get the screen share done properly so that it actually comes up. Here we are. I'm going to share right now. Looks like we're doing well. Okay. Now, here we go. Okay, folks, here it is. If you can see my screen now, you can see this silver spacecraft that's seen, looks like it's launching right now against the backdrop of a crane. This is the SpaceX Starship, and this is the 9th model of test spacecraft that they've built. So this one is actually known as SN9. And SN9 is shown here doing what's called a static fire of its 3 rocket motors. Static fire meaning that they're just going to turn them on for a few seconds to make sure they're working and the spacecraft doesn't fly anywhere. And that's done in preparation for a real test flight. Now, this static fire was done, today is Thursday, the static fire was done yesterday afternoon, and it lasted a very short period of time. But the anticipation is that SpaceX is actually going to fly this particular rocket this Friday, this Saturday, or this Sunday. The flight for this would be up to 15,000 feet, and it would attempt to do the same thing it did before, go up to 15,000 feet, tip over in a horizontal orientation, fly back down to the ground, and then tip up and land vertically. And they think they'll be able to do it this time. But the cool thing is, this is all available for you to see online without any problem at all. And I want to show you where you can go to see this. You can watch this online at this website that I'm using right now called nasaspaceflight.com. nasaspaceflight.com has all kinds of great detailed information about what's happening in space exploration right now, particularly with rockets, but it has a tab that's specifically for SpaceX. So you can find great videos and great discussions about all of the gory little details you'd love to know. All you nerd heads would love to know about the rocket system. You can find it at this location. I've just recently subscribed to this. I've been reading it for some time, but I just recently subscribed to this and I just love it. And this is the only place where you can get the videos like this, and they'll follow the whole day on video, expecting when it might launch. Now you'll see down in the lower right corner that this video is provided by someone called Boca Chica Gal. Boca Chica Gal is a woman named Mary who seems to have exclusive rights to providing video for people to see of what's happening at the rocket assembly and launch site for SpaceX in Boca Chica, Texas. That's why it's called Boca Chica Gal, because she's doing this from Boca Chica, Texas, where the test flights are taking place. So you can do it there, or you can go to the SpaceX website, spacex.com, or you can go to NASA's website, nasa.gov. If you go to SpaceX, they'll tell you when it's going to launch within an hour. If you go to nasaspaceflight.com, you can watch it all day long as they wait for it to happen. So don't miss this spectacular flight. They're going to have another one of these flights of SN10, the very next prototype model, probably in another month, easily, maybe even shorter than that, because they have this cool process of prototyping and flying that they do one right after another. This is going to be a very big spacecraft, so you can keep track of this too. So SpaceX is now in this particular mode of setting these up. In this particular graphic here, you can see SN9, the one that's on the pad right now, and this shows the status of these and how they are just getting ready for flight. So SN9, SN10 are ready for flight. SN11 and 12 will be ready for flight soon. Not much happening on SN13 and 14, but there's already work happening on SN15, 16, and 17. And then the giant super heavy booster, BN1, is also under construction right now. Here's the bottom line on this, folks. The bottom line is 2020 is going to be a really exciting year for spaceflight, a really exciting year for spaceflight because of manufacturers like SpaceX, manufacturers like Blue Origin, and NASA is also building up its resources to go after sending people back to the moon by maybe 2024, although that seems a bit early, but certainly within a few years after that. So this year is going to be a very exciting year for that. Don't let me leave out that we expect to see the first flights of the Virgin Galactic tourist missions to space as well. So watch out for those as well. Lots of cool things happening there. Now, before, as I mentioned, I had some information for you about what cool things are happening this year. Let's see, in space. Let me see if I can locate that for you really quickly so we can just have a quick review of that. And let me just stop sharing my page here while I dig that out for you. And you know what? I'm going to do a couple of things at once. I am also going to see if I can take another question for you while I do a quick search on my computer for the document that I want. What's another question, Linda?
Jennifer would like to know what are the temperature changes as we get further out into space?
Jennifer wants to know what are the temperature changes as we get out further into space? Well, let's see. Well, actually, Jennifer, the temperature changes go like this. It's really very simple. If you're within the Earth's atmosphere, things are not so bad. If you're outside the Earth's atmosphere, the temperature changes. Well, the temperature goes down really, 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 really fast. Okay. And it goes down way below zero, like 200 degrees below zero, as soon as you get outside the Earth's atmosphere. It's not a nice environment at all. Does the temperature get lower as you go further out into space? Yeah, it does, because the farther away you are from the sun, the less intense the radiation or the thermal radiation is anyway. And so it'll be very cold when you're out near Pluto. But is it significantly colder? Is it a significantly different temperature range from being, just outside the Earth's atmosphere? I don't know, minus 200 degrees Fahrenheit to minus 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that's 200 degrees colder, yes. But guess what? Water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, right? So for all intents and purposes, Jennifer, if we were outside in space without a spacesuit and the temperature was just 10 below zero, the water in our bodies would freeze solid. That wouldn't be a good thing. So 100 degrees below zero, 200 degrees, or 400 degrees doesn't make a lot of difference if we're already done by zero. So is there much temperature change? In an absolute sense, you could say yes. Relatively speaking, not a lot at all. It's almost just as cold on the backside of the moon as it is all the way out by Pluto. So this just tells me always wear your spacesuit and don't forget to wear long underwear under your spacesuit as well. What else do you have, Linda?
Cecilia Figueroa wants to know what are stars made of?
Cecilia, you'd like to know what stars are made of. This is one of the coolest topics in astronomy altogether because stars are really made of just very, 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 very hot gas. Mostly hydrogen, Cecilia, mostly hydrogen. There's some helium there as well, but nowhere near as much as hydrogen. And then there are traces of all of the other elements of the universe found in stars, just traces. So stars are mostly big balls of very, very hot hydrogen and some helium. And that's it. The process that makes them convert their hydrogen into energy, then helium and all of the other elements that we find in the universe, that's a really spectacular process, called thermonuclear fusion. Thermonuclear fusion creates all of the elements in the cores of stars. You should look that up. It's a really fascinating process to talk about, and there are lots of different nuances to it that would take hours for us to discuss, but nonetheless, are really, really exciting and interesting. Well, let's see. How are we doing here? So, just a second. Let me see if I can just do this last thing for you, and then we'll be in good shape. Are there any other questions, Linda, while I'm
Yeah,
sort of taking this
nine-year-old
on?
Rory would like to know why don't asteroids get pulled into orbit like planets do?
Rory?
Yes, 9 years old.
Hey, Rory, I understand you're 9 years old and you'd like to know why asteroids don't get pulled into orbits like the planets or the other moons do. But they do. Asteroids are in orbits, Rory. It just turns out, what are they in orbit around? There are some asteroids that are in orbit around Earth. There are some asteroids in orbit around Jupiter, some more asteroids in orbit around Saturn, but most asteroids are in orbit around the sun. Now, the orbits vary in terms of size, length of orbit, things like that, and orientation toward the sun. But those asteroids are all in orbit around the sun. So if you look really carefully, you can track them. Some of the orbits are big, some of the orbits are small. Comets have really huge orbits, but they're still in orbit around the sun for the most part. Some kinds of comets aren't in orbit. They'll come around the sun once and then head out into space, never to return again. But the asteroids actually are in orbit around the sun. Thanks for that. That's a really good question. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Goodness gracious. I'm not going to be able to find it. Okay, well, folks, thanks a lot for joining us this evening. We really greatly appreciate you being with us. We had an opportunity to talk about a lot of cool things that you can see in the evening sky. Most notably, the moon is wonderful to see right now. Mars is really wonderful to see right now. We're losing Jupiter and Saturn, unfortunately. Venus is in the morning sky an hour before the sun. But we have these wonderful winter constellations that all are oriented around the constellation Orion the Hunter. We call that group of stars the winter circle of stars because they are like right around Orion and easy for you to see and identify without much difficulty at all. So make sure you get out and observe those objects. Remember, next time around, we're going to start looking at various parts and pieces of telescopes to help you understand how those parts and pieces work. So you can understand how to make sure you can operate your telescope most successfully when the sky begins to, as we move towards warmer weather, I should say. And don't forget, right now, we have this terrible situation of the pandemic, which is keeping us separate from our family members and friends, and maybe even hindering our ability to participate in various kinds of activities like we had been doing before, where we feel like we're cooped up in the house and can't really get out. Well, sky watching is something that you can do right where you live. You can do it on your front step. You can do it in your backyard. And you know what you can do? You can actually share the experience with others in your family. If you set up like a little Zoom session or a little phone session with other members of your family, either right in your region or even if they live somewhere else across the country, these positions of the planets and the stars are good for them as well. So you can actually sort of share the experience across the telephone or across a Zoom session or something like that. You can share that experience. You know what? Thank you very much, Linda. You can actually have an online star party. How about that? Where you and a group of people connected by phone can all go out and observe the same effect. A really cool thing to do would be to go out and watch a full moon rise. That's a really spectacular sight to see, in which you can sort of simulate the super moon effect. Whenever the next full moon is, if you watch it while it's rising, you'll see that it looks really, really big when it's down close to the horizon. So don't forget, it doesn't take much time for you to go out and begin to learn the sky. Just a few minutes in the evening, say after dinner, as the sky is getting dark, you start with one constellation and then build on that from constellation to constellation, from night to night. You can use any of the star maps that seem to work best for you. I recommended the stellarium-web.org, but you'll find that there are many really wonderful and useful apps that will work on your mobile device that are free. Stellarium is one of those, and these will help you reconnect with the night sky. It might also give you a chance to take some time out for a breather. Take a little bit of a respite, a break from the pressures of the pandemic and other situations that are happening. You can just go out, look at a nice night sky, and feel a sense of calm, a sense of peace, and a sense of reconnection to the night sky. So give that a try. Hopefully that'll help you out. And come back next month, and we'll talk more about what's available in the night sky. If you sent us questions and I didn't get to them, I'll be sure to answer them when I go back online and check them out. Thanks a lot for joining us. Don't forget, the Franklin Institute is open now. You can come down and visit us Wednesday through Sunday. We're open from 10 until 5. You can buy your tickets online and in advance, please, We have a really, really great protocol for keeping the place clean to make sure we keep you safe when you come to the Franklin Institute. So you can come check